Hello, Sagittarius rising. I'm Britten LaRue, and this is Scopes Unshamed for June 2024. 2026. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. All right, here we go. So, the first thing I want to make sure I do is let you know that my once a year opening to my deep dive of teachings is happening this June. The Emergence Astrology Pathway is a 1 to 3 year journey through my most consolidated, mature, most potent teachings that I've been doing now since 2019. What I noticed since I started teaching is that my students tend to stay, and they tend to stay at least 3 years, and they tend to want to do everything. And so I created the Emergence Astrology Pathway to be my most potent teachings in the sequence that makes the most sense and is the most intelligent so that you can really receive everything like with the most receptivity because my teachings go really, really, really deep. This is not an astrology classroom, it's a transformational space. So, what we do is we approach astrology as a language of repair, of recovery, of renewal, of remembering. And this is a deeply transformational space for first coming into your own self, building a home inside of yourself where it's safe to emerge however you want, creating safety inside of yourself so that you can hear your own inner voice talking to you, building intuition, and then building a devotional field around that, and then being a disruptor into the field beyond that. This is like the 3 year trajectory. You can learn all about it at the course page linked below, inviting you to just go check it out. Just go check it out, feel into it. Is this something you want to give yourself? Is this something you want to experience for yourself? Do you feel like this would be supportive to you in your life, especially if you're calling in new ways of relating to astrology and especially new ways of relating to yourself? It's highly magical. I would love to see you there. Okay, let's dive into June. So, when I'm looking at your chart, Sagittarius rising, I want to begin first and foremost with Gemini. We are starting the month with the sun in Gemini, and it's Gemini season until the 21st when we hit the solstice and it becomes Cancer season. So let's look at Gemini for you because it's a really important part of your chart. Gemini is the polar sign of Sagittarius. And in many ways, I like to think about the zodiac as six polarities rather than 12 signs because they really are like an infinity loop and they complete each other. It's like a whole journey along a polarity. And the first house is in polarity with the second house between the first house of like, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, and the seventh house, which is you relative to the other, the person opposite you, the person opposite you that you are in a relationship with, that you're in some kind of energetic or legal contract with. So I think of the seventh house where you have Gemini. This is an area of life that will be activated for you right now, that'll be illuminated for you right now. Things will be up in this zone of life. I think of this house as very much about contracts. Contracts being a set of agreements that two people make with one another. Sometimes our contracts are legal and there's like verbiage, but always contracts are also energetic. We energetically agree to certain things. We energetically agree to certain roles, patterns, ways of being and doing things in the relationship. And we set these contracts into motion from a point in time. And then over time, we often realize, we do realize we want to update the contract energetically, legally, whatever, so that it reflects who we each are now, and it has more freedom in it. The way we keep our relationships feeling very free and liberated is by constantly updating them into present time so that we don't feel cornered and we're not cornering our partner into being something that we used to be that we are not anymore. So, you have Uranus having just entered your seventh house this spring for the next 7 years. Uranus is an outer planet that creates a lot of destabilization. All of the outer planets destabilize. They do this, I teach, because they love you. And sometimes things need to get destabilized. And that destabilization has wisdom and it has intelligence. It's just that sometimes it takes a while to see the intelligence. So, Uranus tends to bring a lot of sudden shakeups. So it's just something to keep an eye on with your seventh house. Like there may be some sudden shifts in sudden awakenings, sudden realizations. Insights may flood in, and you want to reinvent partnerships. This doesn't mean that you quit them, although sometimes people do that. But it often just means updates are needed and it becomes like suddenly very clear where updates could happen. Also, people could just suddenly drop into your life that you want to come into contract with. And that's having something to do with who you are now and how that contract may feel really in affinity with who you are. So these themes are up. The sun's moving through Gemini. You're sensing this. You're getting data. You're getting information about the kinds of contracts that you have and what updates are needed. And then when we get to the new moon, which is when the sun and the moon come together in the sky and start an entire lunar cycle, that will be on the 14th. The moon will come into Gemini. So you'll have both the luminaries, we say in astrology. The sun and the moon are the two luminaries. The luminaries are going to come together in the sky, like really bringing these themes up around partnerships so that you can really like sense how much of you is in relationship to the other and how fascinating it is that there's there's a sense that the self is relative to the other. And it can also bring up awareness around how we often project onto our partners and our partners project onto us the things that they don't fully see in themselves. And a lot of projection can come from fear, it can come from shame. And so in the journey of being with your seventh house information in Gemini season, you may be learning a lot about yourself and you may be learning a lot about your partners and you may be friends and you may be learning about those relationships and what they all need to bring everybody more freedom. You know, how can we have more fun with this? These things are not fun. Let's look at them because Gemini is an energy that likes to have a good time. Gemini is an energy that wants the freedom to be fascinated and interested in all kinds of things. And if it feels like there's a fear-based kind of cornering in any of your relationships, that will want to be met with care to update. So that would be, for example, a case where you or your partner may want to face a fear that one of them has about the relationship. Like if they are feeling like controlling, or if you're feeling controlling on them, there may be a fear about freedom. And so that's an example of the kinds of things that can be coming up when you're going through a seventh house time, especially with like Gemini flavor, because Gemini really likes to feel the freedom of movement. So partnerships feel best when you feel like you can follow your own freedom, but how do you trust in the commitment, right? There can be fear around how do I trust in my commitment when I also want to feel free. And so then questions here can come up around what commitment means. And what I like to teach with Unshaming Gemini, which I love to, if you go to my Instagram at Britten LaRue, you can see a lot of my Unshaming Gemini content, which is always really popular every year. Um, One of the things I like to think about here is how Gemini is naturally a part of us that likes to connect to different curiosities. And how much more committed and how much stronger will our commitments feel if we also give freedom where we don't want to be committed. And so I think Gemini season can bring up a lot of issue, like a lot of relational things around the infinity loop between commitments that you definitely feel so good in making and the commitments you just really don't want to make. And it can, we can bring up the parts of us that feel afraid that we won't be included in the journey of commitment in our partners. And so whether it's that happening in you or that happening with your partner, you know, what that is a fear of of abandonment. And it's really rooted in the past and it really has nothing to do with your relationship. And so themes could come up by the new moon because moon tends to bring up these past things and an opportunity to really nurture where there is a wound and nurture where there is a misattunement, maybe from the past, where we could really like hold this in the fullness so that some beautiful repair could happen here if that's something that would feel really good in your relationship. Then when we move into the rest of the month, like Cancer is going to totally send us into this total new period of our year because it's a new season. Cancer is a cardinal sign, so it initiates a season. So it's going to really shift when we get to the other side of the solstice, where you now are doing something totally different. And the thing to keep an eye on for the end of the month and into July is the fact that Mercury is stationing retrograde in Cancer on June 29th. So building up to that, around it, and after it, there's increased possibility for kind of feeling a little lost or confused with things that come up in our lives and sitting in the vulnerability of not having clear answers, sitting in the vulnerability of confusion, in the vulnerability of mystery, in the vulnerability of feelings, in the vulnerability of the unknown, while we don't yet understand why things are sort of coming up around potentially communications, communication breakdowns, understanding breakdowns, interpretation breakdowns that might be getting hijacked by feelings that really belong to the past. So, the wisdom, I think, in this kind of astrology is to be a field researcher of your life and just take in the data as information before taking action, before pathologizing, before trying to fix anything, before making huge decisions, before cutting anybody out. It's just like, let's sit back a second and let time pass, bringing in more information while I am with my feelings about this information, which I can tend to on my own. So the skill set, I think, is like tend to your own feelings with yourself and with healers, with therapists, with energy clearers, with your guides, and hold on communicating rashly or making any huge decisions with somebody else until enough time has passed that you're like, I'm feeling very grounded, anchored, and discerning in the next move I'm going to make now. I hope that that's supportive because we have these retrogrades, they're part of life, and they usually reveal really powerful things to us that then help us with the rest of our lives moving forward. We get some kind of clarity from the wisdom that we're learning. I always learn so much with the retrogrades. So, to conclude, reminder, please check out the course page for Emergence Astrology Pathway. If you think you might want to go in with me, like really get into the stuff that we get into in emergence astrology, I would love to have you in the class. All right. Cheers.